Hey guys, I hope everybody is having a good morning. I'm here today to talk to you guys again about none other than the coronavirus and our response to it. I know that you are probably just as tired of hearing about it as I am. You're tired about seeing everybody's thoughts and opinions and responses to it on Facebook and other social media. I'm honestly pretty tired of it too. But as a pastor of the church here at First Baptist Church in Clay, I do want to let our congregation know of what our response to this is going to be for this Sunday and in the weeks ahead. Most of you know that yesterday our Governor Andy Beshear asked and suggested for churches to not meet on Sunday. And I know that many churches and many others responded to it almost immediately with decisions of what they're going to do. And I realize we were probably one of the last churches in this area to respond. And there's a number of reasons for that, why we waited today to do that. First, we didn't want to jump to conclusions. God has not given us a spirit of fear, and so we didn't just want to immediately panic and go into fear and cause all of you to panic. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but He's given us a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And that spirit of power, of love, and a sound mind also caused us to hesitate, because we wanted to have a sound mind and to think clearly about this and to wait and hear and to listen from what our government has to say, to wait, to hear, to listen, and to read from medical experts on this, and to not just jump to conclusions about whether this is something to be scared of or not. And so we wanted to take what our governor requested seriously as a church who's been called to honor our government. We wanted to take what the governor had to say seriously and to not just write it off. But secondly, why we're waiting until today is I wanted to be able to meet with our deacons before making a decision. The Lord has greatly blessed our church with some great godly wisdom. And I wanted to be able to lean on that and to hear from them before making a decision about our church. And I've got here 9 responses of what I think is response, some for all Christians and some as it just pertains to Clay. And in regards to these responses, again, some of this will be applicable to everyone. Some of it will be applicable to all Christians. And some of it will only be applicable to those here in Clay and in Webster County, because this virus is affecting everybody differently in regards to where you live. There are some places that are in more danger than we are here. Honestly, we're not in a lot of danger. It's within like a 3-hour radius of us. It hasn't really come close to us. So our response may be differently than others. So if you're listening to this and you begin to panic and freak out, because we're not panicking and freaking out, understand it may be different where you are, okay? So response number 1, and similar to what I mentioned in the video that I posted on Saturday, is that we are going to trust God instead of fear. I've already mentioned 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And we have a number of reasons of why not to fear, but the number one reason being that we are a people who trust God, all right? We trust God. Nobody on earth knows how this is going to play out. We all have our opinions, but nobody does. But there's one who does, and it's God. He is in control. We think about the book of Exodus and the plagues that went throughout Egypt at that time. In just a second, God stopped it. And some people might say, well, why isn't he stopping this? Look, I don't know. I don't know what God's plans are, but it's not my job to figure that out. Proverbs chapter 3, 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understandings. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. It's not my job to understand and figure out what God's doing. It's my job to trust him and to acknowledge that he is a trustworthy, good, sovereign, loving, gracious, merciful, and just God. And so I do that. Okay, Psalm chapter 56, verses 3 and 4. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? Throughout the Bible, there is a command. It's not a suggestion. It's a command. Do not worry. Do not be afraid. In fact, it is the most common command in the Bible. Do not be afraid. That's pretty astounding. It's a command. Do not be afraid. And nearly every single time, the response to not being afraid is Rather, trust God. So we acknowledge God. God is a trustworthy God. And in light of that, I'm not going to be afraid. So if you are somebody prone to fear and to panic, or maybe if you feel that fear and that panic coming upon you, understand that that is not a spirit of God, rather that's a spirit of sin. And we need to reject that. We need to put that off and replace it with a trust in God. If you want more help and insight on that, listen to my video on Saturday from Philippians chapter 4. So response number 1, we're going to trust God instead of fear, okay? Response number 2 is that we need to avoid extremes on this. Our propensity in all of this is to respond in one extreme or the other. One being the world is going to end, or secondly, that this is nothing more than a common cold and absolutely nothing to be afraid of. In reality, the truth is probably somewhere in between that. First of all, we Christians know how the world's going to end. It's not going to end via coronavirus. And so we don't need to fear that. Secondly, in having a sound mind, we continue to look at facts. And these are facts. Unless you're 70 or older, or you have a compromised immune system, you are practically in zero danger of this, okay? And so we need to avoid that fear, that panic-inducing world is going to end extreme. But secondly, we need to understand that this is more than a common cold, and that if this isn't dealt with properly, there can be major repercussions to this. Just look at Italy. Even if there's not a lot of fear of people dying, their hospitals are overcrowded. Their medical system can't handle what's happening over there right now. And so we do need to take this seriously. And if anything, in avoiding the extreme and just writing it off, that's not loving to neighbor, because there are a lot of people fearful. And our response may be to say, well, that's ridiculous. They shouldn't be fearful. It doesn't change the fact that they are. And we, in loving our neighbor, especially we pastors, we need to understand that there are people that are living in real fear, and we need to meet people where they are. Third response to this is we need to honor and respect our government. We need to honor and respect our government. That is a command from Scripture in a number of places throughout the New Testament. And for many people, those on the far left, their instinct is to blame all of this on Trump. Their instinct is to reject everything that Trump says, to roll their eyes, and to think that he has no response to this whatsoever. And those that are conservatives, let's be honest, our response is the same. That's why many churches responded immediately to Governor Beshear, because we don't trust Governor Beshear. We disagree with a lot of the things that he stands for, such as abortion. And we immediately write it off. And that's not any better than how the left is responding to Trump. We're called to honor and respect. And look, in regard to what Governor Beshear said, we need to honor him and we need to respect him, though at the same time, I reject him speaking for God and him telling me what God is okay with and what he's not okay with. He's not somebody that I'm going to trust. I get my view of God from the Bible, not from a governor who lives contrary to the Bible. That said, I still need to honor and respect his opinion and what he has asked. So honor and respect. In now and in the days to come, honor and respect our government. Fourth, in light of that, I do want to remind Christians that church is not a country club. It's not a civic organization to where we can just cancel our services and our gatherings with no consequences. Church is not here for our own gain and our own benefit. Rather, we gather to worship the Lord Jesus first because he is worthy of that worship. All right? Our gathering is not merely an option, nor is it a suggestion by God. Rather, it is commanded and it is expected by God. It is a necessity. Look, God is worthy of our worship, but secondly, we as Christians understand that we need worship of God, one, to align our hearts to God, but secondly, we need the fellowship of others. And so this mindset that I can worship God from the comfort of my home, while I guess that's true, that never replaces the gathering together of your church family. And so we are willing to take a risk. We're willing to put ourselves in danger because God is worthy of that. And secondly, because I understand that I need it. All right. So we cannot cancel church the way we would cancel civic functions. It is two completely separate and different things. Our fifth response to this is that we need to love one another and we need to have their best interest in mind. Even if you are somebody like myself who takes no fear whatsoever in this. All right, I'm not losing a second of sleep. Even if I get it, I'm not concerned. I'm young, I'm healthy. My family is young and healthy. We will be okay. With that in mind, I'm still called to love one another and love my brother and sister. So, look, we are going to be gathering for church this Sunday. But in light of loving one another, in light of loving those who maybe have a greater propensity to getting this and suffering from it than others, we need to love one another. And I need to understand that this means thinking soundly about this disease. And so I can't love one another if I'm bunkered away in my house like a hermit. But secondly, I also can't love one another if I'm completely ignoring the serious warning signs of all of this. Okay? 6 is we need to take the call to worship importantly. And yes, it's a call to publicly worship. God is worthy of our worship. And we need the fellowship of others. So we're going to take it importantly. And in light of that, yes, we are gathering, but we need to be wise. And so these are measures that we are going to take Sunday as First Baptist Church Clay gathers. 1, if you are sick, please stay at home. Even if you highly doubt that it's the coronavirus, it's not worth the risk. If you're sick, please stay at home. Part of loving other people is protecting other people. If you are sick, please stay home. In addition, please remember that it does very little good to stay home from church, but continue to go everywhere else. So one way of loving one another is if you are sick, stay home. All right? Secondly, while we believe that God expects faithful church attendance, even in times that can be in some ways dangerous, we need not be foolish. God, Ephesians chapter 5 says, therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of God is. And so God's will is for us to not be foolish with this, all right? So if your immune system is compromised for any reason, or if you are 70 years or older, we fully understand if you desire to stay home. And we do not want you in any way to feel obligated to come to church. For those of you who are not 70 and whose immune systems are just fine, that expectation is different. But for those whose immune system is compromised, or maybe you are regularly around people whose immune systems are compromised, or you are 70 years or older, you're not obligated in any way to attend church. We will have our sermon available for you as soon as possible after the service. Third, during this time, we ask that you avoid shaking hands and hugging, and even possibly leaving space between you and whoever you're sitting next to, or between your family and another family. We might even be referring to this Sunday as Introvert Awareness Day. For you introverts out there, this may be your favorite Sunday ever. No shaking hands, no hugging, and people not sitting next to you if possible. All right? So again, we love one another, and in light of that, we're going to be careful and wise and not be foolish. Fourth, now and always, practice good hygiene. Wash your hands as much as possible, okay? Don't sneeze on people. Don't sneeze directly don't sneeze on your hands. Sneeze into the crook of your arm, into your elbow. Keep your hands off of your face. Use good, smart hygiene now and always. Fifth, please pray that the virus will be gone from our state, our nation, and our world soon. All right, and this will be on a week-to-week basis. Next Sunday, things may be different. Things may have changed. All right, our eighth response to this: remember that there is a greater disease infecting the world, one that has been around much longer than the coronavirus, one that lasts much longer than the coronavirus, and one that has infinitely more serious and dangerous symptoms. It is the disease of sin. If you're panicking and freaking out over the coronavirus, brother or sister, I want to encourage you that there is something much greater for you to be concerned about. For you Christians out there, those of you that may be panicking about this and worried, listen, those around you have something much greater to be feared. And if you are wanting everybody to take precaution over the coronavirus, you should have a greater concern to get warning out about sin. Our ninth response, and lastly, Remember that you are not an infectious disease control expert. So do not try to play one online. Remember that we do everything without complaining and arguing. All right? Yes, I'm disappointed that there will not be anybody at the NCAA tournament to celebrate Auburn's national championship, and that they will be there to be standing under the confetti all by themselves for people only to watch at home. I'm disappointed about that, but it is not my job to complain, to get on Facebook or social media and complain. We do everything without complaining and arguing, okay? Remember also that everything we say should be seasoned with grace. So regardless of what you think about the NCAA, the SEC, our government, everything you say should be seasoned with grace. And remember that we are salt and light to the world. We Christians should be responding to this and how we act and what we say on Facebook very differently. Let our speech bear that truth that we are to be salt and light. Let our speech bear that truth in our interactions with people. Let's not try to play infectious disease control experts, because we are not. Rather, let us be salt and light to the world and let people understand that we understand that there is a greater threat, that being sin, and let that drive what I do. All right. Look, I'm praying for you as your pastor. I am not concerned about this personally. I'm not concerned about this in regards to the church, and I don't think you need to either. But be wise. Don't be foolish. There are some of you in our church who would probably be wise to stay home. I love you. I'll miss you, but my love for you says, let's be wise about this. Okay. If you have any questions, First Baptist Church, contact me, call me. I love you guys, praying for you guys, and I look forward to seeing you from a distance without shaking hands or hugging on Sunday. God bless you.